Ochako sat on a fallen tree, her hand still playing with the floating ball of light. Izuku stood next her, shifting in feet constantly. Ochako, while still playing with Oshagiri, now had on a blank face, now processing the weight of what Izuku had just told her. Oshagiri-chan is a person that was abandoned, and the only thing potentially keeping her alive is her reality quirk. And the quirk she has messes with our heads. That's why I can see her. Ochako reaffirmed. Izuku nodded. She was actually acting a bit weird. Usually when something like this was going on, Ochako would be the first to want to befriend and help the person. She was strangely distant with Hima. Ochako however jumped off the log and faced Izuku, hands clasped behind her back. Well, what are you waiting for? Take me to her. Of course I wanna help her. Ochako said with a smile. Izuku smiled and signaled Ochako to get on his back. When Izuku turned around, however, his face turned to one of concern. Why did Ochako seem a bit hesitant? Was she worried about Oshagiri being in her head like Bakugo was? That was a bit of an unusual concern when it came to helping someone this dire in need. Ochako hopped on Izuku's back, happily wrapping her arms around him. With a new yellow-lit path to follow, Izuku, charging at 15%, started running and jumping his way through the forest. Ochako clung to him, shoving her face in his back to shield herself against the rush of cold air. Ochako, while enjoying the ride as usual from Izuku, couldn't help but feel a weight in her chest as they went. This girl could be in their heads at all times. Would she find out? Izuku jumped down the long hill and landed at the perimeter of the pink forest, Ochako smoothly sliding off his back. She left her hands lingering on his back for a moment before releasing fully, never getting enough of touching him. She peeked from behind Izuku's back and smiled a large smile. It's so pretty. Is this an illusion? Ochako asked, skipping ahead. She turned to see a full-grown girl about her age, whitish silver hair with silvery eyes. No, these trees were planted years ago. By my ancient family. Nature has proven strong, without mankind's touch. The girl said, now floating around Ochako. Ochako stared in disbelief. You're so pretty, Ochako said. However, the girl's face fell just a bit. Not necessarily, Hima responded. Izuku walked past Ochako towards the shrine that shone through the woods. Ochako followed, catching up to Izuku and grabbing his hand to hold as they walked down the pathway. Ochako watched as the pink leaves swayed, the light slivering its way through the trees gracefully. Ochako slightly gasped at the deer she saw, how they looked at her without fear. Izuku pulled the gate open, allowing Ochako to walk in first, Hima floating ahead of them into the shrine. Ochako stopped advancing, staring upwards at the shrine. The clean and tidy shrine suddenly faded to reveal a worn-down, rotting building. Izuku put an arm around her. You all right? Izuku asked. Ochako examined the building for a second before taking a deep breath. It doesn't hit you until you actually see it. This really happened to her. Ochako said, taking a step forward. Ochako and Izuku walked through the now dusty and ruined shrine. Ochako noticed Izuku's face, a bit of shock and sadness contorted in his features. Ochako assumed he was under the illusion when he had first seen it. Izuku shook his head and walked Ochako up to the second floor, where the body of Oshagiri, Hima now lay, life barely clinging to it. Ochako put a hand to her mouth. remaining at the top of the stairs. How could they abandon you like this? All because of your quirk, Ochako said, sweat now falling from the side of her face. Izuku put a hand on her shoulder to comfort her. I'm going to help her. But I can't do it alone. It'll be a lot of work. Izuku. Ochako said quietly, but sharply. Izuku stopped talking and smiled. Of course Ochako was going to help. Izu, go back to the house and find water and food. We need to nurse her back to health any way we can. Ochako said, looking around, locating an old chair that was overturned in the corner of the room. Izuku smiled wide and did an air punch forward, mimicking Ochako's usual movements, before the green glow started forming around him. Ocha, Izuku called as Ochako was lifting up the chair off its side. Ochako turned to look at Izuku. Izuku's smile somehow got even brighter. I Shitaru yo, he said before darting out the room, the green energy lingering where he stood. He really loves you, the Hema said, appearing out of thin air next to Ochako. Ochako blushed and turned to face the floating girl. He does, doesn't he? Ochako said with a smile, sitting the chair she had found next to the skeletal body. I try my best not to read minds, but I can't help it. When there is intense emotions, Hema said, Izuku-kun's love was so large in that moment. I couldn't block it out. Ochako looked towards the floating girl. Really? It was that strong? Ochako asked. Hema nodded. Ochako looked down at her knees and shuffled a bit. Have you accidentally read my mind? Ochako asked. Hema stayed silent for a second. I have, but not purposefully. Hema's floating body said quietly, hovering over her real body. You seem unsatisfied. Ochako's eyes grew wide. Izuku arrived at the door to the cabin, running into the house. Hello there, Eri. How are you doing? Still enjoying your first day here in the new house? Izuku asked cheerfully. Eri, who was on the couch eating snacks still holding Ochako's phone, looked over and waved at Izuku, her mouth stuffed with crumbs all over her cheeks. Slow down your eating, Eri. We can't have you choking while living here or Aizawa will choke us out himself. Izuku said, cleaning her mouth with the bottom of his shirt. Where's Ka-chan? Izuku asked. Eri pointed upstairs. Izuku's face turned serious for a second before the smile returned and he looked back towards Eri. He placed a hand on her head. Thank you. Now stop stuffing and eat slowly. Eri nodded happily before returning to the phone. Izuku turned and walked up the stairs, headed for Bakugo's room. Izuku took a breath and knocked on the door. What the fuck do you want? Bakugo's voice yelled. Izuku frowned. Ka-chan, stop cursing with Eri around. At the very least not that loud. I have a favor to ask you. I don't want to be a part of helping that girl. I fight villains, not bring people back from the dead. That seems like your kind of thing, doesn't it, nerd? You can do this without my help. Now get your shitty ass out of here. Bakugo said, less loud than before. Izuku balled his fist, frustrated with his childhood bully. Can you just listen? I just need you to watch Eri while Ochako and I go save a life. Maybe you should learn a thing or two about it, seeing as you tried to make me end mine in middle school. Izuku shouted. He hadn't meant to say that. Bakugo opened the door, staring at Izuku with deadly eyes. I'll watch you makeshift fucking daughter. Now get the hell out of here. he said before slamming the door. Izuku, who was sweating bullets thinking Bakugo would murder him, sighed relief. Izuku slowly walked away to find a water container, thinking about his outburst. What had made him say that? He was frustrated that Bakugo wasn't helping Hima. Did he really not care? No. As mean as Bakugo was, he always cared. Izuku's face fell a bit. Bakugo and him were getting along earlier, especially when they were training in the mornings. What was going on? Where stories live. Discover now.